All right, friends, this is day 16, the beginning of week number 4, and we are looking at a super cool story this week. And I want you to read through the whole story today. We're going to take a look at the whole thing. And then later on this week, all throughout the week, we're going to be digging into different pieces of it. But today, rather than digging into any piece of it, I want to give you some background information here. Okay, so this takes place at the temple. We'll talk more about the temple later this week, but kind of more of like the political backdrop of what's happening here. One of the big questions that we're asking is, who is Jesus? It's a question that people at the time would have been asking. In fact, I think a lot of the questions that people ask Jesus in John and the other Gospels are really probing at that, trying to figure out who this guy is. But also another question is kind of a cheaper version of that question. And what I want to show you today is that a lot of people, rather than asking who is Jesus, they're asking what is Jesus. Okay, broadly speaking, you've got 4 kind of factions within Judaism in first century Palestine. I mean, if you were to ask what did Jews believe in first century, it would be, well, different ones believe different things. Just like if you were to ask today, what do Christians believe about something? Well, different Christians believe different things. Broadly speaking, 4 kinds of Jews. You've got the Sadducees. These are like the elites. These are the rulers. Kind of a subset of that are the Herodians. These are like normal people who aren't elites, but they believe many of the same things. These folks are totally on board with Rome. Maybe it'd be better for Rome not to be there, but they've adopted a lot of kind of the Roman culture. They are kind of culturally Jewish, but they are also very much on board with the prevalent culture of the day, which is the Romans. The Sadducees are kind of the leaders, the priestly leaders. They control all the religious affairs. We can go into this more in detail another time. They're super corrupt. I think more mafia than priests. Sadducees with like normal folk who are on board with them, Herodians. Then over here you got the Pharisees. Pharisees, think like Bible thumpers. These folks take their faith super seriously. They do not like that the Romans are there. They also don't want to upset the apple cart because at least the Romans allow them to practice their religion. Pharisees often get a bad rap. Okay, Zealots hate the Romans, do not like the Sadducees and what's happening with the corruption in the temple, and are willing to use violence to overthrow them. The Essenes have left Jerusalem because of all the corruption, completely removed themselves from the larger society, set up a community literally in the middle of nowhere down by the Dead Sea, removed themselves from there. So Sadducees, kind of elites, super involved with the Romans. Bible thumpers over here as Pharisees. The Zealots you're going to think of as like extremists, and the Essenes you're going to think of as like a weird kind of like cult. Okay, so you got all these groups here. A lot of the questions that are being asked to Jesus are people trying to figure out, what are you? What are you? When you read this passage today, it's going to sound like he's a zealot. But then you're going to find out later that actually when he could muster an army, he chooses not to. He certainly seems to be closest to a Pharisee, but he's often critical of the Pharisees, and there's some things that make it clear that he doesn't really fit into that camp. He's certainly not a Herodian or a Sadducee, and he's not, he has some similarities to the Essenes, but he's not living out there in the middle of nowhere with them. And what seems to drive people crazy is that Jesus doesn't fit into any category, because people are asking a cheaper version of the question, who is Jesus? They're asking, what is Jesus? They want to reduce who Jesus is to what like affiliation he has. Do we not do that today? 2 things. 1, how am I reducing a who to a what? Meaning, rather than getting to know a person for who they are, understanding that their beliefs are probably nuanced and backed up by their own experiences and a variety of other things, I want to reduce them to what they are. I mean, the most obvious example is politically. As soon as I know who they're voting for, what they are, then I know all kinds of other things about them. Who am I reducing to a what? Rather than people getting to know Jesus, they wanted to reduce them to just, what are you? Then also, how am I reducing myself to a what? How am I allowing myself to be defined by my political party, by any other kind of affiliation? Because the reality is you dig deep enough in what it means to follow Jesus, you find out that who I am is someone redeemed by Jesus, a precious child of God. And therefore, what am I? Well, the only thing that I can say that is at the top of the list of what I am is a follower of Jesus, and everything else falls somewhere underneath that. I can't be really anything else. Anything else I choose to be. I can't be anything else that doesn't fall underneath me being a follower of Jesus. Can you be a Republican or a Democrat? Sure, but always with an asterisk. I can be a Republican or a Democrat with an asterisk, meaning that I cannot stand fully solid, both feet on either political platform, because if what it means to follow Jesus doesn't line up with my political platform, that's where the asterisk comes into play. And I am a follower of Jesus. First, are you reducing some who's to what's? Are you allowing yourself to be reduced from a who to a what? All of this is going to be at play as we continue to look at this story. God bless you, friends. Keep at it, and we'll see you soon.